1 second. It's just one ridiculous second.
It might be ridiculous for Frank Schleck. That's because he's on the wrong side of it. It's a pretty good-looking second from where Cadel Evans is standing. It's the second that gives him the race lead over Schleck in the tightest tour in history. So far, that is. Cadel Evans leads the race into the Alps, and he can't afford to concede any time whatsoever and still keep it, at least to Frank Schleck. Christian van der Velde is another 37s back in third place. Bernhard Kohl is fourth, but Evans will be more concerned with keeping an eye on Denis Menshoff, 57 seconds back in fifth place, and Schleck's teammate Carlos Sastre, a minute 28 behind in sixth. Alejandro Valverde in 12th place needs to attack today to show that his tour isn't definitively over. Damiano Cunego will be on home territory in Italy by the end of the day, and he's a dangerous climber. And Frank's brother Andy Schleck, nearly 9 minutes down and out of the race for the overall lead, is another weapon for CSC to deploy against the race leader. Hello, we're in the Italian ski resort of Prato Nevoso for stage 15. It's the tour's only bit of border crossing this year, and it looks set to be the most telling stage of the race to date. Now, when the tour began in Brest just over 2 weeks ago, the organisers' decision to scrap time bonuses at the finish of every stage wasn't exactly headline news with everything else that was going on. Now, though, it's beginning to look like a masterstroke of race planning. There's never been a Tour de France in which first and second place was separated by a single second after 14 stages, and it makes what was all set to be a great few days racing in the Alps anyway even better. Not racing in the Alps though, Britain's Mark Cavendish. The first news of the day came out of Team Columbia, and it was that he is packing his cleats, his record-breaking 4 stage wins and his massively enhanced reputation, and heading home. When you take a look at the stage profile today, you might begin to understand why. It's 183 kilometres stage 15 from Embrun to Prato Nevoso, with a giant Alp in the middle of it and a medium-sized one at the end. The climbing starts early too. Just 58 kilometres into the stage is the summit of the super category Col Daniel, just under 2,800 metres. That marks the French-Italian border, and once the riders are over it and into Italy, there's 1/3 category climb to negotiate before the final ascent of the day up to the ski resort of Prato Nevoso at 1,440 metres. Now, the race has never been here before, but Cadel Evans has. He's ridden up here with a teammate to recce the climb, although from the looks of things he didn't see a great deal of it. He knows the final climb of the day though, and he knows what he has to do, as he revealed exclusively to ITV4.
Got anything planned? Any big moves? Could you tell me about them?
Ride well.
Riding well, of course, generally takes both wheels, although if you're going to have a wheel change, the neutral zone before the flag drops for the day is the place to have one. Terrible weather at the start, and getting a rain cape on and off while moving is an art in itself, one that Sebastian Chavanel didn't quite seem to have mastered. Now, as we join the action on the climb of the Col Daniel, 4 men have got away, and the best placed of them is 53 minutes 16 seconds down on Cadel Evans, so they have a chance of staying away. That man is Spain's Egui Martinez. With him is his fellow Spaniard Jose Luis Arieta, along with Danny Pate of the USA and Australia's Simon Gerrans. We join them a kilometre from the summit of the Col Daniel, and they have a lead on the chasing field, or non-chasing field as the case may be, of 13 minutes.
Well, we are coming up to the last kilometre here on the Col Daniel. The riders who led all the way, this is the back of the groups. The riders are going off quite quickly. Robin McEwen, the sprinter, has gone. Mark Cavendish, I'm afraid to say, hasn't gone. He went before the race started today. He's on his way back to the Isle of Man, I would think, out of the race and heading to Beijing.
There's the banner on the side of the road indicating Italia. So we're now crossing over into Italy, and we haven't quite reached the summit as Egui Martinez accelerates a fraction there, Phil, and that's to get himself not only maximum points here, but maximum prize purse as well.
Well, he takes it ahead of Arieta, and then not surprisingly now, it'll be no problem for Danny here. He'll just put his jacket on, and he'll get over the cut. So it's Martinez, Arieta, Simon Gerrans of Australia goes over in third, and Danny Pate of the USA and Garmin Chipotle, he's over in fourth. And a big wait now for the next King of the Mountains points. Look at the valley now. This is quite a dangerous descent. It starts very steeply and twists. We're in Italy now as the race starts to wind its way down to the valley. If our camera just panned left, you would see an absolutely stunning sight.
And now you can see there's a lot of damage has been done just at the back. 165, that's Philippe Gilbert. Alongside him, 83, is Alexander Bocharov. Adam Hansen, 46.
Yes, surprisingly, that Smith, I think, has come back too. Well, he rode well before. The champion of Denmark, Nicky Sorensen, number 18 on CSC. Meanwhile, life at the front. Robbie Hunter of Barlow World is in the red and riding extremely well. And these boys have just kept up a good tempo. Cadell Evans has moved much nearer the front in that yellow jersey. And life on the other side in Italy now.
Yep, and a good sign as well. With 3 riders from Silence Lotto at the front end of the main field. So Cadell Evans has still got a large number of allies with him. But as you can see, Phil, this is not only a precarious and technical descent, it's quite a scary one too.
Yes, Danny isn't the best of descenders watching these pictures either. Let's hope that he can just hold these guys. The roads get a bit straighter as we get down the valley. You can probably hear the wind whistling just now. It is very, very strong today, much stronger than when we actually drove over last night. The gap at 12:24, 117 kilometers still to go. The bunch are in the last 800 meters of the ascent. Popovic doing all the pacemaking. The man Cadell Evans wanted alongside him on his team, and he got him.
Not far away from the front. In fact, in the second or third row there, I noticed Carlos Sastre. Oh, grab that, get it out of the way. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Or would it be thank you very much, coming from Fabian Cancellara?
12 minutes to gap. They're still bringing them back, you see. Even so, they're over the other side, speeding to the valley. And as Paul said, it's going to take them around 40 minutes to get off this mountain downhill.
Popovic is looking pretty scary here this afternoon, Phil, and that's a good sign, because he was signed up for an awful lot of money for one reason, and one reason only, and that was to support Cadell Evans in the mountains. The team actually didn't believe that they had enough money to be able to afford him, to bring him on board, because he's the kind of rider who's won the white jersey in the Tour de France, finished on the podium of the Giro d'Italia, but they said if Cadell is going to win, he needs to have a strong alloy. And I can tell you one thing, I think Popovic is coming to form in the Tour just at the right time.
This is Simon Gerrans talking to the team car, just asking them what's on the menu today. And he's got a couple of power bars handed out the window, and he freewheels back up to the boys. 11:57 the gap, so they are being brought back, according to the clock, towards the top of the Col d'Aniel.
Taking on board food is very important on a day like this, especially with the weather conditions.
Oh, what's going on here? Sebastian Lang and Bernard Cole going for the points, is it? No, it's not Sebastian Lang.
Thomas Voeckler, it looks like to me.
It is, and that'll be Bernard Cole, I think, behind him. Anyway, that's all we're going to see of that shot.
That was a still picture. I'm not quite sure
exactly
exactly what it was.
Passed, whatever it was, yes.
Better to stay with the leaders, because at least the pictures are fairly stable now. We've got away from the bad weather that we had at the start. To Jose Luis Arrieta. Just looking down as the riders now start to get themselves nice and organised, and it was a confirmation. That strange photo that we got, in fact, was Thomas Voeckler getting himself over the top of the climb in 5th place, just ahead of Bernard Cole.
And they're saying the official time gap at the summit was 11 minutes and 50 seconds.
Welcome back. Now, the weather conditions on the Col d'Aniel were treacherous for descending, and they were hampering the signals from the camera bikes too. So this is the only shot of a serious accident involving Oscar Pereiro, who went over the crash barrier at the top of this hairpin bend and fell all the way to the crash barrier at the bottom of it. The 2006 Tour winner broke his shoulder in the fall and was taken straight to hospital. Then more riders came down on both sides of the split at this roundabout. The highest placed of them, Christian van der Velde, lying third and lying in the road temporarily before getting up and back on with the rest. Up ahead, the four-man break was onto the last climb of the day, knowing that one of them was going to win the stage.
We are looking at the 4 riders in the leading break. 10 minutes 13 at the gap. Danny Pate, I think, is tired. He's following the wheels and he's not contributing to the pace. Well, he may be just being clever here, because I think, for my money, Martinez is the man to beat. There's the peloton, and there's still a big group here, despite all the pressures. They've got quite a lot of riders. Oscar Ferrer finally has said enough is enough, and he's going to just ride home now to live to fight another day in that points competition.
Cadell Evans Behind those dark glasses, Phil, you cannot see the concentration that he must be going through. He's got to concentrate on the day in hand. He's got to wait and see who's going to be the person to attack him. Queuing up behind him, though, is big Denny Menchoff. Menchoff has still got Juan Antonio Fletcher alongside him. And Juan Antonio Fletcher in the newspapers this morning, Phil, said, "I am dedicating the next 3 days to my man, Denny Menchoff."
Trouble here, team Gerard Cholik, the sprinter, also at the back of the race now. These are the riders who are gradually waving farewell to the pacemakers here, all CSC.
Team CSC, Phil, have pretty much splintered the main field here, and still big Jens Voigt comes battling up to the front. Vladimir Gusov will be the next rider to take over the pacemaking, and it's a little bit too much for David Moncoutier this afternoon. Attack here by Egoy Martinez.
Well, he's gone early because I would have put him down to attack after the others tried a move. He's tempting them out to play here, and he's caught Arrieta. I thought Arrieta looked a little bit ropey as this climb started, and if they slow down, he'll ride himself back in, but if they apply the pressure, I think he will be dropped. And look at Danny Pate. Is he tired? He's got a lot of courage if he is.
Well, he's pulling himself inside out, and he's pulled himself right back there to the wheel of Egoy Martinez. Now, I don't think Egoy Martinez expected that. I have to say, I think that's the first of many moves. Jose Luis Arrieta, surprisingly enough to me, was the first man to get caught out in the crossfire. But getting out of the saddle again, Danny Pate is starting to lose a length there on Egoy Martinez. Martinez standing on the pedals. Pate says, right, you're not going away from me, mate. I want to win a stage of the Tour de France this afternoon. Simon Gerrans is a good climber. He needs to get himself back into the rhythm, not to panic. Don't go into the red zone, because if you go into the red zone, you never come out. At 7.5 kilometers to go now, Egoy Martinez, a former teammate of Lance Armstrong, has tried to split this leading group of 4, but one man has resisted the first attack, and that is Danny Pate of the United States of America and Garmin Chipotle. He's pulled himself back up to the Spaniard. They caught out for a little while Simon Gerrans there in the green jersey, and I have to say Gerrans is slowly dragging himself back into this race. Now this is Schleck's turn.
Let's not forget the other part of the Tour de France, because this is Andy Schleck here setting the pace with Carlos Sastre, and now there are only 2 riders in front of Cadel Evans from that team, and Cadel does not look stressed at all. This is Jens Voigt, job done, and just how small is that leading group now, and the Maillot Jaune is riding like a leader just at this moment.
He's just sitting there, just keeping his eye on the men in front of him. He's keeping his eye on number 11. That's the rider second in the line there, and that rider just happens to be Carlos Sastre. Jaroslav Popovic flicking his wrist there. He has to stay with Cadel for as long as possible. Behind him is the big Russian rider in the orange jersey, Denny Menchoff.
But that was why he flicked his wrist. He wanted to move out, and he gave the signal to Denny Menchoff. I'm not sure that Popo is going quite that well, although he's got onto the back there. Watch out for the rider with the red top. That's Frank Schleck. 1 second behind Cadel Evans. Cadel is just hanging on to these 2 riders here. Cadel Evans has just followed the wheels of a team which has lost their drivers one by one. The only man they're interested to, really, is Sastre and Schleck, and they are both waiting for the moment. They will attack, but they've got to wait till all of their team drop off. The other rider in here who's impressive is Vladimir Efimkin. With the disqualification of Rico, he has a stage win to his name now.
Now Andy Schleck has kept the pressure on a fraction there, and now we can see what's happening at the back end of the group here. There's still riders getting tailed off one by one.
That's a good ride by Johan Schott, but he's gone now. As we go further up, Jerome Pino is still there, but this is a race now of strongmen. Now there's the attack by Sastre. Cadel Evans has to answer that one, but no need to panic. Sastre is a long way behind for the moment. Bernard Cole as well. This is a decisive move. The yellow jersey is still looking strong.
Well, the yellow jersey is looking strong, but he's not the one who's chasing them down. In fact, the pressure is coming on the front there, Phil, by the man from Russia, Denny Menchoff.
Good for Cadel.
Right
Others
up there.
have got a race 2 in this event.
Others got to race 2 in this event, but it just goes to show that Team CSC are going to do everything. Bernard Cole has grappled onto the back wheel of the Spanish rider there, and Van der Velde is still in contact.
Well, Bernard Cole on the right in the light blue is the new leader in the King of the Mountains for sure now. He'll get double points up here on the top for the first few riders over. Well, that was the first card played by Sastre when he's come to the attacks from their stars, and that has cracked David Arroyo.
Well, I tell you what, that was a very well laid plan by
Jens
Team
is
CSC.
gone.
Again, you can see the move coming by Carlos Sastre, and again, it's Denny Menchov coming.
I'm a bit surprised to see Sastre try this on a hill which is not that steep, but now look at Denny Menchov here. Cadell Evans can't afford to let the gap open. He's across the gap like a rabbit, and that is another cracked rider from the team there. That's Andy Schleck.
And moving up there in fourth position, you can see Alejandro Valverde. Frank Schleck, Phil, is just sitting back there, waiting for his turn to move. He's watching the aggression. Don't forget, Frank Schleck in the red, white and blue there is only looking for a single second.
And let's not forget Alejandro Valverde there in the black. The rider who had such a rough ride in the Pyrenees, maybe coming back in the Alps. He's right there now. He looks across at Frank Schleck. Cadell Evans looks across at them both and goes back into the slipstream. He's the leader of the Tour de France. It's up to the others to attack him. And on the left there is the new leader in the King of the Mountains, Cole. And Christian van der Velde still there. No teammates on his side with him.
Well, this kind of climb suits the big man from Spain there on the left-hand side, wearing number 31. That is Alejandro Valverde. Van der Velde back in contact. Moving up as well there, one of the riders from Euskaltel, that's Sammy Sanchez, who was in a little bit of difficulty, but he's recovered. Further up the road there, here, Phil, you can see
Pate again, got back to him.
He's come back to the leader, Egoy Martinez, and Simon Gerrans will not give up. He's around about 10 lengths off the back of that group, but he's still dreaming of a stage victory.
Welcome back. There are two races taking place today on stage 15. A select group for the yellow jersey and three men fighting it out for the stage win.
5 kilometers to go. 3 of the 4 remain together. Martinez has tried twice to get away from these riders. Twice they've hauled him back. He may not have a third in him.
Well, I'm not sure that he does, and I tell you what, I take my hat off very sincerely to number 199, Danny Pate, who doesn't have the reputation of a climber like Simon Gerrans or Egoy Martinez, but he's responded and he's present and correct all of the time. This now is the yellow jersey group. These are pretty much the heads of state of the Tour de France this year. Sammy Sanchez is slipping backwards.
He's back in the group, so we're now 10 as he goes to back. Carlos Sastre doesn't look so good anymore now. Frank Schleck is being set up by his brother at the front of the race to launch him perhaps for the finishing line. Remember, a second is a blink of the eyelid. That's all it is to steal the yellow jersey.
I was trying to pick up who the rider was from Liquigas. It's Roman Kreuziger, and he's now moved himself up to the heads of state. Yes, you're right. I think Carlos Sastre has hit them very hard on a couple of occasions, and now he's been put into the red zone for a while. He needs to get himself sorted out if he wants to think about trying to attack again.
Just look at the acceleration there as we came to a halt with our picture of Alejandro Valverde. He looks across at Bernard Cole, who's turning out to be something of a revelation in this year's Tour de France in that blue jersey. Andy Schleck setting tempo now, trying to get Frank a little bit of a chance to recover. So too his other teammate, Carlos Sastre. So he's got to set the pace. Sanchez has found his legs again, and he comes up alongside Christian van der Velde, who is content at this moment to follow wheels. And I do not believe that van der Velde is in any trouble at all. He might well go near the end.
A little bit further down the slope here. This is the man that the majority of the Italian crowds will be shouting for, Damiano Cunego. I've absolutely no idea where he is currently, but the fact that he's alongside Sandy Cassarfield would indicate that he's maybe not at the front end of the race.
They've been split on the climb. They're in the second big peloton of the Tour de France right now.
Kirken.
Yes, and he's losing ground. This is not good for Kim Kirken. He started the day 7th overall. The former yellow jersey is under pressure at the back. He may be losing a few places today.
Danny Pate has decided he doesn't want to be subjected to the pacemaking of the two climbers now, so he's felt that the best thing for him to do is come up and set the pacemaking himself. And when you are not maybe the best climber in the group, that's sometimes the best thing to do, because you can set a pace which is comfortable for yourself.
Well, one thing's for sure, Alejandro Valverde has shed all of his problems with the Pyrenees. He's back in the race in the Alps here. I'm not sure he can make up time lost, but he can take stages. Look at the face of young Andy Schleck. This is for brother Frank. He's just riding till he drops.
Well, he's setting a massive big tempo for Team CSC. They really are a phenomenal team. I'm a bit concerned, Phil, about Carlos Sastre sitting second from the back of that group, because despite the two magical attacks he put in, he now seems to be in a little bit of difficulty. three riders at 4 kilometers to go. Martinez, Danny Pate and Simon Gerrans, and still you cannot really pick a winner.
The Group Maillot Jaune have halved the deficit, 7:30. They won't get them, though, at 4 kilometers to go. They won't be that far behind them, though, because the infighting is taking place. Still at the front is Andy. He can't go on much longer. And at second wheel is Valverde, then Bernard Cole, and then Kreuziger, Frank Schleck, Cadel Evans, Menchov, Sastre. They're all still there.
And the one man you forgot to mention, of course, Christian van der Velde, looking very comfortable. I think this is the kind of climb that suits Christian van der Velde here this afternoon. Evans on his own, but there's only one team that's got a multiple number of riders in there, and that's Team CSC. Van der Velde, 191 at the back, still pedaling very supplely and keeping himself in contact with the yellow jersey. I think when you're a guy like Christian van der Velde, you've got to pick a rider to try and follow. I'm amazed at how well Van der Velde is riding in the Tour de France this year, Phil. He really has become the revelation for the United States.
If he runs out of these Alps with a very close time loss to the leader, he can win in the time trial. He's very, very quick. Up front there, the three riders, I think, have tried their attacks and haven't had an answer. It might go down to the finishing sprint, which, of course, is very much uphill. As we go back here, the rider in the lime green, the only thing we're certain about, Paul, in that group, as we look at it, one of them will win the Tour de France in Paris. There's nobody else in this race.
Absolutely. One of those riders in the yellow jersey group, which has created this afternoon the first serious selection. But let's not forget, after this stage today, Phil, there's a rest day, and then there's two more vicious days in the Alps. And this race can turn upside down on any one of those occasions. The three leaders, look at Danny Pate here.
Well, he's strong.
He is extremely strong. He's riding well and he's riding sensibly. He's waiting for the moves, he's waiting for the accelerations, and he decided, he looked at Simon Gerrans and said, well, I'm going to have a go myself and see if I can get rid of the Aussie, but he can't.
He lifts the pace. He's forced Simon Gerrans to get out of the saddle and close the gap, and he's just checked on him. And sometimes, if you're feeling strong, you let the rider think he's getting on, you kick again.
Martinez is gone.
And yes, and he wasn't looking either, was he, Danny Pate? That wasn't an expense. That could have been an expensive move. But Pate has a lot of strength in these legs. He's going after Martinez. I don't know why he keeps on checking on Gerrans. Gerrans is a fighter. This man knows how to suffer, and he's trying to go back. Meanwhile, our other Tour de France is on the lower slopes, and Andy Schleck is pushing on as he tries to go clear now.
Well, Andy Schleck has taken off there because he's seen a little move going clear there, and I think Denny Menchov...
he's gone down. What did he hit there?
He just slipped on the road. Menchov was making his big move of the day, Phil, and he went down and his chain is off. Well, he's going to have to get himself back in. Just look at this. He just goes around the corner and it's so slippy.
There is no reason for that, I think. And in fact, I can look out the window here. The rain has just started, can you believe? And it's becoming quite heavy in the last few kilometres. And that was simply the grease on the surface of the road. Well, the riders saw that, but there'll be no waiting now.
Phil, that was a scary move by Denny Menchov. We knew this man was the silent mover, the silent man in the main field, waiting for the move, just looking down to check and see if there's any damage to his bike, and he says, no, it's okay, I've got to get myself back into this event. But you can see now why Denny Menchov has been regarded as a dangerous bike rider.
Well, you don't deserve bad luck like that, but the rain has just started. It's just skimmed on the surface of the road here. It's caused a little bit of a regrouping of the boys here as Andy takes over the pacemaking. Brother Frank is down in the centre there. Valverde to the right, Cole to the left, Sastre to the back. They are all here.
Well, they're all here and they're all waiting. I'll tell you one thing, that Andy Schleck has got a fine pair of legs on him this afternoon, because he was immediately off in pursuit of the man from Russia who's just getting back into contact there. That's an indication that Denny Menchov, Phil, has got great form, but that was very sad for him to go down like that.
Well, we're still spread by exactly the same time gaps as when we started this race today. There is nothing in it. 57 seconds covers the top 5 men in the Tour de France. And if they finish like this, there will be no time differences again tonight. These are the leaders locked in combat for the win as they head up towards the summit of the climb. Still Martinez doing the work. And just who is the strongman of this group?
Well, Alejandro Valverde looks concentrated, looks good.
That's the secret weapon, Kreuziger.
Yep.
He's going to be such a great cyclist.
He's going to be a great bike rider. He's lost himself a lot of time in the Tour de France this year, Phil, but it's only his first serious attempt. He started the day in 19th place overall. Now another acceleration coming from Andy Schleck, saying to them, take this one if you can, because I'm going to hurt you, men, and we're going to hit you again before the summit.
This is a rider who was dropped by the group, who fought his way back and went straight to the front and stretched them again. And he's put Sanchez in a little bit of trouble with acceleration. Still hanging slightly off his Carlos Sastre. He's not riding smoothly, number 11. But Christian van der Velde, he is still following. He's not under pressure.
Van der Velde, 191 in the white jersey there of Garmin Chipotle, looking very comfortable. He's alongside Cadel Evans. And right in front of Cadel Evans, Evans is keeping his eye very firmly on the red, white and blue jersey there of Andy Schleck.
Well,
Frank Schleck.
Yeah.
At 2 kilometres to go, Phil, there are still 3 men in contact for the victory this afternoon. Danny Pate is trying to get the win for the United States of America. He looks across at Egoy Martinez to say, how are your legs, my mate? Can I beat you to the summit? In the yellow jersey group, though, they've got rid, I think, finally, of Sammy Sanchez, and there's another acceleration at the front.
And look at the back here, because Cadel Evans has got to grit his teeth right now. That is a very serious push by Menchov. That has hurt Cadel Evans, but he struggles and fights. He's looked over his shoulder, Menchov. He's seen the yellow in trouble, but he knows it's all coming back together again.
Well, that was a serious acceleration by Menchov, and I'm not a little bit surprised as to why he sat up, but it's allowed Cadel Evans to get himself back into this race. Bernard Cole there comes to the front, and he's now going to look for the acceleration, and that is a move that they need to respond to.
Well, we're looking at the real race to lead the Tour de France here. That is why our cameras are staying away from the men who are out to win the stage. We'll cut back by the time those riders get up the top. But right now, Cadel Evans and Frank Schleck, the 2 men likely to succeed, are both in a little bit of trouble.
The man who nailed back Bernard Cole there, in fact, was Alejandro Valverde. Now, that goes to show that Valverde is recovering as this race goes further forward. Sitting on the wheel of the yellow jersey now is Frank Schleck, and again the acceleration coming at the front, and this time again it's Denny Menchov.
And I think this time it's curtains for Andy Schleck, so they've lost a pacemaker. Cadel is on the whip end here. He's being flicked around at the back of this line. Menchov is advertising to everybody he's got the legs now, but Alessandro Valverde is simply superb, and on the outside now, a little move to just go to the head of the race.
Did you say that Andy Schleck was gone? Well, excuse me, he's just come back, and he's thinking about brother Frank. He's thinking about Carlos Sastre. This is an unbelievable team.
Kim Kirken trying to get back up into competition here.
He's around about a minute in arrears off the back end of the yellow jersey group. There is Efemkin. He's been dislodged. Cyril Dissel is in this group as well. Sandy Cassar.
Bernard Cole is trying again to answer. Where does Andy Schleck get this from?
Well, he gets it from the fact, Phil, that he was a white jersey winner of the Giro d'Italia last year, 2nd overall. He's got the ability to climb. He's hit them and hit them again, and he's trying to set something up. And look at this. Frank Schleck has seen the move now, and as soon as Frank Schleck gets to the wheel of his brother, he accelerates, but Cadel Evans is pinned to the back wheel of the man who is 1 second ahead of behind him in the overall classification.
Well, this is the group that's racing approximately 6 minutes behind the leaders. Let us not forget that. We're coming up to 1 kilometre to go. There they are. These are the 3 leaders of the day today. None will pull on the yellow jersey tonight. There is the kite for them, and Danny Pate is going to take them to the kite. The man who has looked completely fried for 100 kilometres seems to be extremely strong indeed. We are looking now further down the slopes, and this is another attack by Sastre.
Carlos Sastre is looking for the climb this afternoon. He's just about to get joined there, Phil, by Denny Menchov, covered as well by Bernard Cole. This man wants to win the Tour de France this year. He's put everything into the bank to try and win if he can. Finally, Andy Schleck goes to the back of the group, and they're having to put Cadel Evans onto the front. Evans is now
Valverde's
defensive.
Gone. That's it, and he won't chase Valverde because Valverde's lost time. Now Cadel is looking for wheels. He's seen Frank Schleck go. He's got to chase Frank. 1 second splits them. Cadel Evans gets in the wheel of Christian van der Velde.
What a race this has been, Phil, and this is only the first of the Alpine stages. Look at the face here on Denny Menchov. He's trying to ride himself back into a top 3 position at the end of the day. Carlos Sastre is the man that set it up, but I tell you what, CSC are all over this race. Roman Kreuziger is the man now setting the pace ahead of Frank Schleck. and Cadel Evans is just pulling himself back into this. They have thrown everything at him this afternoon.
This has been a very tough time. There's a 1 second gap there right now. My opinion is Cadel should lose this yellow jersey and give it to Frank Schleck and live to fight another day. We've now seen Menchov is right into the red zone as well as he gets up behind Sastre. Sastre, he's the odd man out of the favourites. He needs some time gain now to start the long journey back. He can't ride the last time trial.
Well, Cadel Evans now is pretty much on the defensive, and again Christian van der Velde says, I'm going to go now. A lot of you can follow me if you can.
Well, there's some of the crowd up here on the finishing line as the three leaders head up towards the finish. No decision. Danny Pate of Garmin-Chipotle zigzagging across the road. Here comes the chase behind again. Menchov, Cole, Sastre, watch out. Valverde is creeping up. We've split it 4 and 4 here at the moment, and Christian van der Velde might be the saviour of Cadel Evans today.
He may well be. I think if you remember back to the climb up to Otakam, he was the saviour of Cadel Evans on that occasion too. Bernard Cole now comes out nodding that head of his in that strange gangly style to lift the pace once more. He's looking to improve on his 4th place overall at the start of the day, and he's not really looking for very much on Christian van der Velde.
They come up, they're about 1.5 kilometres behind the leaders of the race on the road today. That's how much they've closed up on what has become a totally personal battle between 6 or 7 men. The face of Sastre here. Every one of these riders today have dug into depths I doubt they ever knew they had.
Well, I tell you what, Phil, this is announcing that the next 2 days in the Alps are going to be very scary for the top 10 riders in the overall classification. Carlos Sastre has given his everything this afternoon, but we are not surprised to see the man in orange there, Denny Menchov, the Russian rider wearing 131. Cadel Evans finding some help here and assistance
at the finish. Danny Pate's broken, but look at the speed of Simon Gerrans. The Australian has left them all. They should have dropped him, because this is going to give Australia a terrific stage winners. Chased home by Martinez. A win for Simon Gerrans after 4 Tours de France. He snatches the first ever victory, and that is absolutely delightful from the man from Mansfield in the state of Victoria. And a terrific result for Danny Pate. An all-day breakaway, and the USA rider gets 3rd.
Well, that was a brilliant performance by Simon Gerrans. After all, Phil, he was dropped at the start of the day, climbed his way back into the leading group of 3 and came up with a sprint. Now, it looks to me as if Cadel Evans has been on the ground here this afternoon, because you can see a little bit of dirt on his elbows. There is Christian van der Velde just trying and fighting to stay in contact. They're getting some assistance here finally from a pacemaking that's been done by Sammy Sanchez.
Well, they've thrown everything at one another and they're almost neutralised here. Sammy Sanchez is trying to get up to them and help them out. Bernard Cole, Denny Menchov, Sastre and Valverde. None of them will affect the race destination tonight, but they're closing the gaps on Evans. He will note that.
Well, Bernard Cole in the blue jersey there, Phil, is looking for 46 seconds. That's all he requires at the end of today. And he's got with him the man who is just behind him in the overall classification, Denny Menchov. I'm not surprised to see now a little bit of backing off there by Andy Schleck. He's done a great job. Christian van der Velde still in contact here. 1st, 2nd and 3rd in the overall classification at the start of the day. But now it's Roman Kreuziger who's setting the pacemaking there for Cadel Evans, still in the yellow jersey.
5 riders at 1 kilometre to go now. The race is on to see who will be the next wearer of the maillot jaune. Carlos Sastre has to take time in the Alps. He has to, and Valverde has to take lots of time, but he wanted to do well. He wanted to prove a point today. He's the Spanish champion.
Alejandro Valverde will ride himself possibly back into the top 10 at the end of the Tour de France stage this afternoon, and he's got with him Denny Menchov. Phil, this is a great battle here, and there is the yellow jersey trying to keep it on his shoulders, and I'm looking at my clock here. He's already lost himself under the red kite, Phil, 33 seconds. So he's only just holding on to the yellow jersey ahead of Bernard Cole.
Well, my opinion, it'd be better if Cole took it away from him and took off a little bit of the pressure here, because the men that he really fears, I think, are around him, with the exception of Menchov. who is gaining time. And there goes Cole again, and this could be for the yellow jersey.
Well, Cole knows this, Phil. He knows he is so close to the yellow jersey here this afternoon. He's looking for 46 seconds. That's all he wants. He doesn't care about finishing 5th or 6th or 7th on a stage like this. And look at Carlos Sastre. He too is pulling himself back up there. And Alejandro Valverde is riding like the true Spanish champion that he is this afternoon.
Well, Carlos Sastre is 1 minute 28 behind Cadel Evans. He needs time, and he started to get it by the look of it. 500 metres to go. Cole surely must realise now he could be a yellow jersey wearing the Tour de France. That has never happened to him before. Don't worry about the time count, because that is the time on Simon Gerrans, who's been home for 3 minutes. Cole, Sastre, Valverde's tracking a little bit.
Well, Cole gets out of the saddle again, Phil, over this final steep part of the climb. He doesn't have to worry about what position he's going to be this afternoon. He has to worry about the clock and what the clock is going to tell him. And once he's crossed the line, start your clock and try and count for 46 seconds, because that's what it's all going to be about at the end of the day. Has Cadel Evans and the group behind got any power left to try and pull back the gap that he had?
Menchoff has been placed in serious trouble here and might go back to the Cadel Evans group, because Bernard Cole, who's threatened to do something, he is most certainly now the new leader of the King of the Mountains, and the clock may also make him the new leader of the Tour de France. He's going all the way to the line. It is a case of every second counts, and Sastre is also gaining time. This race today has not opened up. It is completely closed down. We are still talking about a matter of seconds, and now 44 will do.
49 it's going to have to be. There is Alejandro Valverde going in. Look at the clock at the bottom there. It's 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Cadel Evans has to cross the line, Phil, inside of 4 minutes and 49 seconds if he's going to keep the yellow jersey. Here is Menchoff. He's been tailed off as well on the run up towards the finish. Cadel Evans now in the yellow jersey is battling to keep that yellow jersey on his shoulders. Schleck has gone.
He has gone, and he only needs a second over the yellow jersey, and that is a second at least there. Cadel Evans knows he's fighting now to keep yellow, and it's a desperate moment. Schleck crosses the line. Well, a second's gone now, so there's certainly a new leader in the Tour de France, and you know Cadel Evans could well be sitting tonight in 3rd place behind Bernard Cole as well.
He was. Here are the finish times that mattered today. Bernhard Cole was first home among the big names, having started this morning 46 seconds behind Evans, 45 behind Schleck. Frank Schleck, though, came in only 38 seconds behind Cole, and behind both of them was Evans. 9 seconds behind Schleck, 47 behind Cole. Programme the maths, and this is the result. Frank Schleck, the new leader of the Tour, by 7 seconds from Bernhard Cole. With this morning's leader, Cadel Evans, another second behind in 3rd. Schleck must have known he'd taken the second off Evans as soon as he crossed the line. His celebration was just delayed until he was sure he'd limited his losses to Cole. Evans' face, though, registered the bad news before he'd even crossed the line. Almost forgotten in the drama was the stage result. A great win for Simon Gerrans ahead of Egoy Martinez and Danny Pate. Arrieta, who fell off the back of the break, was 4th. Then came the contenders. Carlos Sastre finished with Cole to pull himself closer to the race lead. Alejandro Valverde picked up some time, as did Dennis Menchoff, who could have had more if he hadn't crashed on the final climb. Frank Schleck was 9th, a couple of seconds ahead of Christian van der Velde. Van der Velde also picking up a little time on Evans. Andy Schleck was 14th after all his work at the front. Vladimir Efimkin 21st. Damiano Cunego 26th after coming down in a crash. David Miller 105th and Chris Froome 127th. Well, Simon Gerrans had looked the most likely of his trio to get shelled off the back on the final climb, but he had the kick when it mattered to take easily the biggest win of his career.
Oh, for sure. To win at the Tour de France is the biggest and the hardest race on the calendar. It's just an amazing feeling. I'm just, over the moon.
Hard as well. I must admit that it looked for all the world like it was going to be Martinez's stage. His accelerations, one after the other, but you stuck with him, and in the end, he had no answer to you. Yeah,
Martinez was by far the strongest climber in the break, so it was up to him to make it hard on the last climb. So, but unfortunately for him, he just couldn't quite unload us, and I just managed to kick past him at the finish.
Many congratulations. Well done.
Thank you.
The big winner of the day, though, was Frank Schleck, demoralised to miss out on the yellow jersey by a single second on the last day in the Pyrenees. he takes it on the first day in the Alps, although he was happy to have it confirmed for him, even once he was wearing it.
Frank Schleck, yellow jersey, Bernard Cole, Cadel Evans, Dennis Menchov, Christian Van der Velde, Carlos Sastre, 49 seconds between you.
Yeah, it's really tight, eh?
Really tight, but your name is top of the list, and that was a fantastic achievement today. You had to be patient.
Yeah, true. For 4 or 5 days I've been sitting just behind, no, 3 days, just been sitting behind the yellow jersey for 1 second. But that's great, now I have it.
And alongside Cadel today, you were looking at each other, you were talking at some points. Did you exchange words?
Not really, I mean, it's way too fast today to have a lot of talking.
And too fast, full stop, as it turned out for Cadel Evans. There's the new look to the top of the standings. Schleck, Cole, Evans, the 1, 2, 3, as we've said. Then Dennis Menchov gaining time and up to 4th despite his crash. Christian Van der Velde down from 3rd to 5th, although only a second further off the lead than he was this morning. And Carlos Sastre in 6th place, just 49 seconds off the lead himself. On the second page, Alejandro Valverde gains a little time. He's 9th. Damiano Cunego is 15th, 7:43 off the lead. Andy Schleck slips back a little bit. He's 17th. David Miller is now 51st. The stage winner Simon Gerrans 61st. 95 is Chris Froome. And the new last man in the race after the problems with his rain cape today, 153rd, Sebastian Chevenel.
Well, a whole raft of talking points from the first day in the Alps, Chris. Frank Schleck finally takes the yellow jersey. Is he the real threat to Cadel Evans, though?
I think there's 3, I mean, and they've all got work to do. Cole, Menchov and Schleck, and all 3 of them need to gain more time. So they've started the campaign, but they need to use both mountain stages remaining to get some more time into him, because he's the best time trialist there. They haven't got enough with stands. Of course, Menchov's got time to make up, so it remains fantastic racing for us.
And of course, it would have been an even more explosive stage if Menchov hadn't crashed after he launched that first attack. But what about CSC? We saw all their men on the front today. We saw they've got Andy Schleck to play with, and now Carlos Sastre is up within about 40 seconds of Cadel Evans as well.
Yeah, Sastre had to go earlier on in the climb, but of course he reverted to type it later and started to follow again. So unless somebody is going to drag him up the road, I can't see him being a threat. 28th in the time trial, but he's still going to lose minutes. All
right, well, a huge pity really for the race that it's a rest day tomorrow. A huge relief, though, I'm sure, for Cadel Evans. Before we go tonight, we're going to start our 3rd and final Tour competition.
We have a fantastic Carrera Virago bike worth £1,000 to give away, courtesy of Bike Hut at Halfords. The bike has a full carbon fibre chassis and it's designed for road racing and sportive riding. 5 runners-up will win a copy of Chris Sidwell's book, Tour Climbs. For a chance to win, just correctly answer the following question. Where will the Tour de France start in 2009? Is it A, London, B, Edinburgh, or C, Monaco? Call 0901 293 2008 with your answer. Calls cost £1 from BT landlines. Calls from other networks may be higher, and from mobiles will be considerably more. Alternatively, you can text Tour plus A, B or C as your answer to 63337. Text cost £1 plus 1 standard network rate message. Digital satellite and cable viewers can also enter by pressing their red button now. Each red button entry costs £1. Or enter online free at itv.com. Entrance must be 18 or over, and lines close at midday on Sunday the 27th of July. Entries made after the closing time will not be counted, but may still be charged. Now, there's no racing on the Tour tomorrow, but we'll be back as usual at 7 p.m. with a full review of all the action since the last rest day. So that's a full review of the last 5 days of racing tomorrow night at 7. And of course, there's always itv.com/tour to send us emails or download the podcast.
So, 2 fabulous days racing left in the Alps on the other side of the rest day, including that live stage on Alpe d'Huez. Chris, what are you expecting in these next 2 stages?
Put simply, attacks from the word go. All the riders that are in the hunt for the yellow jersey, we've got Sastre, we've got Cole, we've got Frank Schleck, all of them need more time, because Evans can time trial and they need to get more time. Obviously in Menchov's case, what a tragedy that he crashed, because he needs to gain time first. He was only 7 seconds behind in the time trial, but he shows the potential to really escape and make that up. So I think it's really could come down to the final time trial, but they've got to really make a meal of it in the Alps first.
And as far as the Alps go, CSC look the team with the most weapons to deploy. Schleck in the yellow jersey, Sastre only 41 seconds back.
I think that's the real card that they're holding, isn't it? That they've got two people that they can use, and you have to watch them both. Neither of them ideal because they're well down in the time trial. The first time trial, they're going to lose minutes, and they need to gain that. But between them, I think that if one of them can slip up the road, then they too are still in contention. But they need a lot of time.
All right, the one thing we do know is that Cadel Evans has no teammates when it gets onto the climb, so if he wants to take this yellow jersey back, he's going to have to do it on his own. Don't forget the rest day programme tomorrow. We'll be back on Tuesday with Stage 16. This is still the closest tour in history.